We are back. This is an interview I've been looking forward to for a while. I've known Mike MacIntyre for, gosh, I don't even want to say how long. He is the newly named head football coach at FIU. And while I don't know the first thing about FIU going in, I have become an FIU fan and make no bones about it. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing good. I want you to see something that I think is going to put a smile on your face. Can we go ahead and roll that photo?
Yeah. Look at that.
That photo. Yeah. That's Whit Taylor, Alamo Matthews, and Mike's father, the late George MacIntyre, who was one of the, not only a very good football coach, but a way better human being, one of the all-time good people that God ever put on this earth. Mike, what do you think? What couple of qualities as a coach do you think you sort of took from him?
Well, I think the thing that was so real about Dad is he treated everybody special. You know, anybody he ran into, he made them feel like they're the best people in the world. And I hope I try to do that. Also, he was real on the field, off the field. You always got the real George MacIntyre that cared about people, and he cared about his players more than just players, and they knew that. You can ask any of those guys to this day. He made a big difference in a lot of people's lives.
I tell this story from time to time about George MacIntyre. In the, I guess it was in the spring and the summer of 1985, I went after the Georgia Tech play-by-play job, and it was at that moment the job of my life. And it was ridiculous to think at 25 that I was going to get it, but I got interviewed for it. They ended up rehiring Al Seraldo, who had been a legendary play-by-play voice at Georgia Tech. Anyway, the next season, I didn't have the best attitude in the world. I was Vanderbilt's sideline announcer. And Mike, about 30 minutes before the first game, you all are out there, doing what goes on in pregame. And he sort of motions me to come over, and he goes, "I know you're not real happy, but hang tough. Your day is coming." And I was like, how many Division I coaches would do that 30 minutes before their game?
Well, he was just an extremely humble man, and he thought of others first before he did himself. And not many people do that ever, and he's one of those people that did that.
By the way, before we get into the football and the coaching, this guy delivered as good a eulogy at his father's funeral service as I have ever heard. Man, there was not a dry eye in the house by the time that was over. How hard was that for you?
Well, the words to say about that were not hard. You know, my brother Matt did a phenomenal job also. And, we lived it every day. And so when you see someone truly live a life Christ-centered, truly other people-centered, humble, it's easy to talk about them for sure.
Now, let's talk about this new phase in your football life. As a head coach, it started at San Jose, where you had some breakthrough things go on to help that program. Then on to Colorado, where I think you did an underrated, really good job. I may be biased, but I think you did a lot better than you were given credit for. And now it's FIU. Talk about why you wanted this job and what the challenge is, because it's huge.
Yes, I'm really excited about FIU. And, it's kind of gone full circle a little bit here, George. Dad played at the University of Miami and then started coaching there. And I was born there. I was born in Miami, lived there the first 5 years of my life. Then we moved up to Tampa, and then we kind of made our way on up to Nashville. And so going back to FIU and to that area is really exciting. And as you well know, the thing that excites me so much is there's so many good football players there. I mean, Dade Broward alone, and then we recruit that as in-state. We treat out-of-state as Orlando and Tampa and Jacksonville. I mean, there are so many good football players, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to get them. We're going to help develop them, and we're going to be successful. They've had some success at FIU, and we'll have it again.
Mike, talk a little bit more about that recruiting base? Because we sit up here and we hear about Florida and how loaded it is, but take that a little bit further, because to me, that's the exciting part of what you've walked into.
Right. Well, there's so many high schools, and football's in their DNA. I've told this story a few times, so I'll tell it again. The first night I was able to get out recruiting in January after I got the job, it was a Tuesday night. I was going to watch a kid play basketball, and I got to the school, and I got turned around, so I had to turn around in the parking lot of the football stadium, and the lights are on. Tuesday night, 7:30. I looked out there. There must have been 150 little kids out there. So I rolled up my window and I asked a lady, a ma'am, and she said, yes, that's 150 4 to 8-year-olds out there having practice camp, football camp, because they're getting ready to pick their teams for spring football. 4 to 8-year-olds in January playing football. That just shows you their DNA. That does not go on everywhere. Does not. And football is extremely important to these young people here and extremely important to the community.
Mike, what is the, I don't know if the word is ceiling necessarily, but you're in a state with a lot of competition, a lot of Florida State and Florida and Miami. You know exactly what it is. How do you get your fair share in this?
Well, it's kind of like we were at San Jose State. We were in an area with pro football, Stanford, Cal, you name it. And so it was, you find a way. And, the way you do it is you turn it and you start winning football games. And we'll do that. And we'll get our share. And, we compete in a great conference in Conference USA, which has Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee in it, which are fun games for me personally. And so it's exciting conference, and we'll find our path. College football is radically changing in front of our eyes, and I think everybody will find their niche and find a way to be successful.
Mike, let's go back on some of the experiences you've had. I'm laughing as I think about this because I remember trying to help you at Western Kentucky and thinking that was the one that you were going to get. And the athletic director at the time calls me and says, look, I want you to let him know he did a really good job, and I know that, but he's not getting that job. And kind of out of nowhere, San Jose, at the 11th hour, boom, you're the coach. And I get a call one night from you like at 11 at night saying, tomorrow I'm going to be a head coach on the Division I level.
Yeah. It always goes, it's crazy. Our business is really crazy. I always say it goes in threes. You interview for jobs, and all of a sudden you're interviewing for a job, another job pops up, and you got to find ways to figure it out. And I think the good Lord just puts me in the spot that he wants me in at the time. And I can't tell you how excited we were about the San Jose State situation and the Colorado situation, and now we're extremely excited about here at FIU. And, there's just so many players around here. Once we get it turned, we'll be able to sustain it because I remember my dad always said, if you can get talent, you can get talent in school, you can win.
So let's go back on that for a minute. What do you take out of the San Jose rebuild? Because it wasn't exactly the Green Bay Packers when you got there, and yet very quickly you moved them up the ladder. Is that kind of the blueprint for what you're trying to do here?
Yeah, it's a very similar blueprint. When I coached at San Jose, 98% of our football team was from the state of California. I would like that to be that way here in a couple of years at FIU. At least 98% of our players are from the state of Florida. That can change a little bit with all the new transfer type thing that's happening, but it's a really exciting. And we have a phenomenal new AD in Scott Carr, and we're hiring a new president. We're excited about what's going on with our program. Our president, our interim president, Ken Jessel, is doing a phenomenal job. So we're really excited about our future and where we're headed.
Okay, let me ask one on Colorado. I thought you were that close to getting it over the hump. If you could do that one over, how would you get it over the hump?
Well, we lost a couple close games there a couple years that if we would have got those, we would have been over the hump. We had the biggest turnaround in Pac-12 history, which is something I'm very proud of. And, just trying to sustain something is sometimes hard to do. But I was very excited about our time there. And yes, we would have liked to kept it going, but we definitely left it a lot better place than it was when we found it, for sure.
Now, here's something a lot of people don't know. Among the coaches this guy has worked with or for, Bill Parcells, David Cutcliffe, not to mention his own father. Take me through a little bit of what you've learned from all of those guys. And in particular, I want to really zero in on Parcells because I think we're all fascinated by him.
Well, first of all, with my father, I just it got to be in my DNA. That's what I was, I think, born to be, was a football coach, and seeing how he treated people and worked with them and the success he had at UT Martin and how he turned around Vanderbilt. I mean, they basically rebuilt Vanderbilt after he got there. So it was enjoyable. And then David Cutcliffe, phenomenal coach, phenomenal man, gave me a opportunity of a lifetime and really helped propel my career. I cannot thank David Cutcliffe enough. I would not have reached any of the dreams I've been able to reach if I wouldn't have worked for David Cutcliffe 2 different times. And he's a great mentor of mine. I just think the world of him. And what he did at Duke was amazing. It will not be repeated. And what he did there is absolutely phenomenal. And then, with Bill Parcells, it was another great opportunity. That was a crazy story. I just get a phone call out of the blue that he wants to interview me, and went down there and interviewed and got the job. It was like getting my PhD in coaching, because in the pro football, you don't worry about school, you don't worry about recruiting. It's just football, football, football. And I learned so much from him. Mike Zimmer was there. Sean Payton was there. There was all kind of guys on our staff. It was amazing the amount of how those guys ended up being head coaches different places. And but Coach Parcells meant a great deal to me. Taught me a lot about management of a roster, and that's really been a big help this year with all of this transfer stuff, managing a roster. And so that's really been big. And then he also taught me a lot about practice schedules and how to develop a quarterback. And that was really good. I got that from Coach Parcells and from David Cutcliffe. I think how to develop quarterback, because every school we've been at, our quarterbacks have broken tons of records and played really well.
What a resume. We're talking with the new head football coach at FIU, Mike MacIntyre. Billy, what do you got for him?
Mike, thank you so much for coming on. I want to talk about the transfer portal, and you talked about with FIU, where you are in that state. There's so much talent in that area. What is your pitch to the local high school football player who may have high aspirations, but he may need to start at a program like FIU in the Conference USA, and in your journey to build? What's your message to those players?
Well, number one, stay at home and play. When I first got this job, it was amazing how many kids were in the portal that were from the state of Florida who were playing at the schools they were at that are calling me wanting to come back to play in the state of Florida, especially in the Miami-Dade area, in Broward area. So that's one of the things that intrigued me about the job, because all of that hit, and I knew how that worked. That there'd be young men that we would recruit at FIU and might go somewhere else and want to bounce back in a couple of years because of the new rule. There'll also be a lot of young men that see kids leave to come back and say, "Hey, I'm not leaving here. I'm staying." So our goal is to keep all the ones that we can right here. Of course, there are going to be guys that leave, but there's going to be a lot of guys that stay, and there's going to be guys that want to come back and be part of it. So managing our roster and understanding that will be able to help us be really successful and be able to load up our roster each year.
Mike, there's a young quarterback by the name of George MacIntyre who has kind of burst onto the scene. I know he recently got a Vanderbilt offer, and so he's kind of working his way up. You talk about message to a guy who's not your son, but what are you telling your son during this day and age of college football, where he's starting to have schools start to come his way? What's your message to him?
Well, it's kind of a touchy situation because I'm a football coach. I really can't talk about him with all the recruiting rules. But he has a great namesake. I know that. One great namesake.
No doubt about it.
That was, that was beautifully diplomatic right there. I love that. But how sad that the rule is that he really can't talk. Let me butt in. Is your son Jay on your staff?
Yes, my son Jay is on my staff. which is really exciting. He played for us at Colorado, was an excellent player, and then went on to coach at Southeastern University in Lakeland, Florida. They had a great year, and then he went to UT Martin. So he was right there in the state of Tennessee at UT Martin for 2 years, and they had one of the best years they've ever had in the history of their school last year. And he was receivers coach and co-offensive coordinator there. It's interesting. My dad coached at UT Martin as the head coach. I coached at UT Martin, and my son Jay coached at UT Martin. 3 generations. And now I was very fortunate to be able to hire him here to coach with our receivers and work with David Yost, our offensive coordinator, who's our quarterback coach too. So it's very exciting.
Mike, you talk about the challenges of recruiting. There's challenges everywhere, but coming from a place like Colorado and of course at Ole Miss as well, this is, I got to believe one of your first opportunities to coach in an area like Southwest Florida. So how do you compare those situations, coaching on the West Coast in the Pac-12, and now you're coming down to Southwest Florida in Conference USA?
Yeah, down here in South Florida, there are so many players and there's so many coaches that want their high school kids to be great. I can't explain to you how passionate football is. You've been in cities like Philadelphia is a passionate basketball city. Dade and Broward are passionate football areas. And so that excitement excites you as a football coach. Kids love to be coached. They love to practice ball. They eat it up. And it's really exciting to coach these type of kids.
Mike, first of all, before we end this, I've got some messages to pass along. Watson sends his best wishes to you and your family. He's not on today. I don't think he blew you off. I think he blew me off. But he says hello. Secondly, I need you to pass on hello to Matt. I hope he's doing well. I don't ever see him anymore. And let's see.
He's working too hard all the time.
Well, I believe that. I do believe that. And third, every young aspiring sideline announcer should be lucky enough to work for somebody like your dad.
Yes, I agree. Everybody should be.
He was the best. Good luck to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.